All right, we're good. Welcome to the CFL 3-Down Breakdown. It's Week 16. I'm Ian Cameron, joined by Andrew McInnes. We're going to get right to the games because we have no time, or we have no room to spare, basically. Hope you were able to join us for the Ice Guys. Andrew will be a regular part of that show starting on Thursday. We launched it early this morning. If you missed it, check out the archive, Sportsbook Review YouTube channel. We broke down the season preview for the NHL. Very good video, very good first show, so you can check that out anytime. But we're talking CFL here. Week 16 action here in the Canadian Football League is ready to take place. And Andrew, we're going to start with the Friday night game, Hamilton taking on Winnipeg. Rotation 625, 626. No lines again this week. But again, as we've done the last few weeks, so it's later in the CFL season. Lines, odds makers are just taking their time. There's more injury situations in the CFL at this time of year. Of course, they're paying attention to NFL and college football lines as well, games at this time of year. So as a result, CFL lines get backed up in terms of release. That's the way it is. Just got to roll with the punches at this point in time. But right now we're looking at a situation where this has been Hamilton's role basically in terms of making money with this team since the coaching change, since June Jones took over as head coach, since Jeremiah Masoli took over as quarterback, and this road, and there's absolutely going to be an underdog in this game, and this road underdog role. Beat BC outright as an underdog of double digits, beat Ottawa outright as an underdog by double digits, and I'm looking at the Hamilton side here. I know Winnipeg's going to be laying a big price, but they're off yet another mammoth division win against Edmonton last week. I can't see them being as focused, as intense, and as up for playing the Hamilton Ticats here in this spot. Hamilton, of course, has hardly any room for error. Following that very, very tough loss in overtime against the Toronto Argonauts, a game they led most of the way, just couldn't hold the game late. My bigger play on that game was on the over. That was never in doubt. Lots of points in that game. I expected both offenses, which were in good form, going into that game to get the job done. They sure did. A back-and-forth football game. Offenses, Ricky Ray and Masoli on both sides moved the ball well. But I still think Hamilton has given you that effort. I mean, they're in every game since the coaching change. They've had a chance to win every game. They're right there. The C.J. Gable trade does not bother me. That they traded him to Edmonton. This Alex Green that they found at running back played against BC, and he was awesome. He's going to be the starting running back moving forward, and if he plays anything like he did in BC, Ticats are going to be in good hands from the running back spot. Fantuz is finally back at receiver. He should feel more comfortable now playing his second game with a game under his belt. Shamad Chambers has given that receiving core more depth. The defense didn't like the way they finished the game against Toronto. Maybe they got tired, worn out, but for the most part, Hamilton's defense has dug in and played a little bit better. At least it's not a great defense still, but they've been at least a little bit better since the coaching change. Hamilton plus the points. It's the way I'm going to look at this game. Andrew, what's your take?
Yeah, I think Hamilton's really improved as the season has gone on. We had high expectations for them starting out, but last week I really think they actually proved to us that they actually could play. They were in the game with Toronto. I think it was just a bad game, Ian, for them to have such a good game, really. They went up against a really strong Toronto team right now. It's kind of dominating that East. I did have the Argos and the over in that game. But again, I'm just looking back in the Winnipeg and Edmonton last week, 28-19. Edmonton, look at the way they started, Ian. I know we're saying this every week, but it's kind of disappointing. It's really just hard to see. Edmonton starting off 7-0, now trying to break their last 0-5 and can't get a win. I just think it's just too dominant. I agree with you, though. Hamilton will probably be good at pick for the plus points strictly in because they're not going to get nearly as much respect as they deserve. They're going to deserve a lot more respect, and they're going to lay huge points on Winnipeg. So as much as I think Winnipeg's definitely going to win outright, I definitely would agree with you on taking the points for Hamilton.
Yeah, value-laden team right now. Winnipeg's playing great football. I mean, what can you say about Matt Nichols? He's been great. He didn't even have a great game last week, but finally the Bombers' defense now. I was on Edmonton, unfortunately, last week. That was a loss for me, but the spot was great. I mean, you can't ask for a better spot for Edmonton off a bye, looking to snap that losing streak, but it didn't happen. Winnipeg just dug in defensively. I was not buying Winnipeg's defensive turnaround after they beat up on Ottawa the week before, because that was Ryan Lindley, and he was awful, and he really wasn't that much better last week against Saskatchewan either. So I wanted to see Winnipeg's defense. What could they do against Mike Riley and that Eskimos offense, which is still a very capable group with Edmonton rested, time to prepare and practice off a bye week, and that was a great showing by that Winnipeg defense. And without Jamal Westerman, too, one of their top pass rushers, of course, lost for the season due to injury, and they were still able to do a great job defensively on that side of the ball against the Eskimos. So props to Winnipeg, but I just get that feeling a little flat spot here. Hamilton coming in and outside the division. They're only a 3-win football team. I think Hamilton, been competitive in every game since Labor Day. I think we see more of the same here. Let's go to Saturday now. We got a doubleheader on tap for the Saturday CFL slate. Saskatchewan taking on the Toronto Argonauts. Saskatchewan staying in the East, Andrew, after the game against Ottawa. So this is not a bad travel situation. I know it's the second straight road game for Saskatchewan, but this is not as bad a situation because they stayed in the East. There's no back and forth travel, practicing all week, I believe, in Kingston or somewhere between Ottawa and Toronto leading up to this game. So decent situation for Saskatchewan, even though it's their second road game in a row. Toronto's 3 straight wins for them. They're caught fire a little bit. Give them credit for battling last week back to beat Hamilton in overtime. They've beaten Edmonton, Montreal, and Hamilton now 3 straight games since their bye week, which recharged and refueled this team. They got Victor Butler and Cleon Lang back on their defense. They got Ricky Ray's played well since the bye week as well. They got Devere Posey back at receiver. That's a big deal, one of their better weapons at that position. So the Argos have played very good football. They're looking to take charge, I guess you could say, of this East Division race and prove that they can win it because it's wide open. It's there for the taking for Ottawa, for Toronto, and believe it or not, still Hamilton, even though they're going to have a lot of work to do ahead of them. But the Argos are playing good football. Saskatchewan has now all of a sudden lost a couple in a row. They lost to Winnipeg. They lost to Ottawa, or they actually beat Ottawa. Sorry, they came back to win that game last week against Ottawa, 18-17. Didn't feel like they won it, though, because I had Saskatchewan -3, and they fall short, only winning by a point. But they did win that game straight up. My bad on that. They did lose against the spread. Kevin Glenn, another up-and-down game for him. They gave Brandon Bridge a look late in that game. So what's Chris Jones going to do at the quarterback spot remains to be seen. Probably not going to have much on this game. I still think Saskatchewan's defense is going to be pose some challenges here for this Argo offense, even though Argo's offense has played good in recent weeks. I'm probably not going to have a bet on this game. What do you think about Riders and Argos on Saturday, Andrew?
Yeah, I'm loving the Argos right now. The Riders had their good little couple games in a row, Ian, where we were taking them. I know you were taking them for a couple weeks. We were both really high on them. This young athletic team, in my opinion, this game is going to be the game of the week. This will be the game to watch. This is going to be very enjoyable. It's 2 teams that have actually pretty good defenses, can score on all special teams, can get defensive turnovers, and they're all over the place. But, coming down to it, Ian, I think I would end up taking the Argos, depending on what the line is and how big it would be. But I don't usually take an East team high points over a West team. But right now, with the way the Argos are playing, and the Riders are kind of in a little slump right now, they're on the road still. Like you said, they stayed out east. I'm going to keep rolling with the Argos.
Yeah, I you know what? I don't think that's a crazy opinion. I mean, the Argos are playing very, very good right now. I still always worry about those games when it's West versus East. We've talked about how the huge disparity there is between both divisions this season. I mean, it's been, once again, the West has kicked the snot out of the East in head-to-head games, and even Saskatchewan, even though they didn't cover, came back to beat Ottawa last week in the second half. So you always worry about that, but it's an Argo team that's playing good. They're healthy again on defense. Ricky Ray, I think that bye week rested his arm, and again, late season bye weeks, especially in the CFL or NFL for that matter, both of them, late season bye weeks when you're like 3, 4, 5 weeks away from the end of the season. Those are like gold. That's like finding treasure when you can get a bye week this late in the season because everybody's feeling it. You got injuries, you got pain, your bodies. You played a lot of football now. We've been going since June now in the CFL. These late season buys really do a lot to recharge and refuel teams, and it's done that for the Toronto Argonauts, playing very good football. Saturday, the second game, we've got Ottawa taking on, speaking of bye weeks, the team that was on the bye last week, the BC Lions, hosting the Ottawa Red Blacks. BC is going to be, as they always are, favored at home. It's time, I think, to stop favoring them by more than a touchdown. We've seen that now multiple times. It's almost a given, especially when they're playing an East team, that they're favored by more than a touchdown. But if they're favored by more than a touchdown, one more time here against Ottawa. My numbers have them -6 in this game. If it's 7 or higher, I'm going to have to look at Ottawa again because I don't trust BC laying big points right now. I know they're off the bye. It's a great situation to get rested, focused off a very, very tough and borderline bad loss, you could say, at home as double-digit chalk against the Hamilton Ticats, losing that game on a Sergio Castillo last-second field goal to beat the Lions there. It's put up or shut up time for BC. They are starting to look like they could be that West team on the outside looking in, which could be a disaster for me, considering I thought this would be a Grey Cup team. Now we're wondering if they'll even make the playoffs and rally the troops quickly enough to get into the postseason. But again, it comes back to Jonathan Jennings has to be better, has to be more consistent. There's too many erratic throws, too many bad decisions. It's the same has been plaguing him now all season long, and specifically the last few weeks. You just need better and more consistent quarterback play. However, that defense moving forward has the potential, Andrew, to be very, very scary. Michael Brooks came back from injury. We know how good Solomon Elimimian is, and now they get a premier pass rusher the last couple of years on this team. He was cut recently in the NFL. Alex Bazzi made his return for the BC Lions last week. This could be a hellfire and brimstone BC Lion defense moving forward. They could be very, 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 very good now that they've got Bazzi back to bolster that pass rush even more. That is the main concern for me, even though I'm leaning Ottawa. Sir Vincent Rogers' injury on that Ottawa offensive line is big. Okay, he's their best offensive lineman by far. Ryan Lindley's not really Mr. Mobile. He didn't really throw the ball well under any sort of pressure the last couple weeks against Winnipeg or against Saskatchewan last week. But Saskatchewan made their defensive adjustments at halftime last week when Ottawa actually did move the ball a bit. They ran the ball well. They threw it well. Saskatchewan, Chris Jones made their defensive adjustments, and that was it. Turn out the lights. The party was over from that point on for the Ottawa offense. It did absolutely nothing in the second half. Nothing in terms of moving the football. I worry that could happen here against BC. Lean to the Ottawa side if I get enough points. I've still got to see what this offensive line looks like for Ottawa because BC's strength is their pass rush right now in their front. It could overwhelm Ottawa and Ryan Lindley here in this spot if he does play again. Well, that remains to be seen. It's a really good question right now with the quarterback spot. I mean, I don't know if it'll be Harris, and I don't know if Drew Tate's back. So that's something you're going to want to monitor all week long who the quarterback is. That's going to go a long way, too, to determining if I bet back Ottawa in this spot. Hey, I've cashed Ottawa unders 2 weeks in a row with Winnipeg and in the Saskatchewan game, which was actually my 3-down breakdown best bet that I posted on Twitter last week, the under in that Saskatchewan-Ottawa game. I'll go to the well with the under one more time here involving Ottawa this week. I think it'll be worth a bet. It'll definitely be worth a bet if Lindley suits up. But even if he doesn't, and it's Harris or Tate, that pass rush for BC against a very, very depleted offensive line for Ottawa without Sir Vincent Rogers, their best lineman, that could be a matchup difficulty that the Red Blacks are going to have a tough time overcoming. Andrew, what do you think about the Ottawa-BC game on Saturday?
Yeah, Ian, I fully agree with you about the under. You nailed it last week on Ottawa, and I really think it could happen again this week. To me, it's either the under or a pass in this game. Looking at these two teams, I think they're a big mess. I think that Ottawa was having a good spell there. There were a couple good games in a row, and then with the quarterback injuries, they can't really seem to gain that chemistry from their wide receivers. Meanwhile, with BC, I don't really know what's going to happen with Jonathan Jennings. Their quarterback situation is all over the place. Travis Lulay was playing better than him, and then he got injured as well. For me, it's either a pass or under. Again, just I don't really know what I'm going to expect out of Ottawa. And with the fact that I was so high on BC throughout the whole entire year and leading up onto this CFL year, I'm just going to have to wait to see what the total is and probably either look for the under or possibly tease it with Ottawa. But I can't really touch BC right now, Ian.
You know what? I'm just doing some checking right now because there's so much going on. I haven't been able to keep up with the Harris status this week going into this game. So I'm going to see if I can get an update right now if he's going to be. I heard he's close. Someone in our chat seems to think he might be back this week, but that's huge. But again, that offensive line for Ottawa has been an issue the last couple of weeks. So obviously Harris is a little bit. It looks like he is probable to come back. I'm just looking right now. He's on track to play. On track to play this week against BC. So keep an eye on that. It's not a for sure thing yet, but it looks like he's probable at this point. That might change my opinion a little bit. But again, I want to see what the offensive line is because the way I look at it in football is Quarterback is one thing, but the offensive line is even more important to me as a football handicapper. I could have Tom Brady back there, but if he's got 3 new linemen, and especially in the tackle and the guard positions, he's not going to be as good. He's not going to be as sharp throwing the football or have the time available to him to throw the football effectively. So to me, the offensive line situation with Ottawa is one that you got to keep an eye on. It's one that you absolutely need to check on, especially Sir Vincent Rogers is their left tackle, their best lineman. Want to watch that. But definitely, as of right now, Ottawa and the under, the ways I'd lean in that game on Saturday. All right, let's wrap it up with our final game, Week 16, a Thanksgiving Monday special. That's right, it's Thanksgiving, Canadian Thanksgiving this Monday. There's always at least one CFL game. Usually there's 2. I'm actually surprised we're not having a double header. Usually they have 2 games on that Thanksgiving Monday, 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock Eastern, but just one game taking place on Thanksgiving, Canadian Thanksgiving Monday, October the 9th. We've got the Edmonton Eskimos. Someone's got to win a game here. Oh, you talk about 2 teams in free fall, the Edmonton Eskimos and the Montreal Alouettes. Someone's got to win this game. I'll tell you what, for the Montreal Alouettes, you're going to be feeling like you're the turkey right now because you've been getting carved up like a turkey the last few weeks here in the CFL. You've been an utter embarrassment, really. Like, I've seen quit from this team. I've seen wave the white flag shit from the Montreal Alouettes, not just last week against Calgary in that complete and utter disaster, that which had quit written all over it. But before that, when this team fell behind by 2-3 scores, that was it. They tapped out. They wanted no part of competing hard. They wanted no part of making a big play down by a big score in order to try to turn the momentum. This is a team that is quitting on their season right before our very eyes. That is not a team I can back in any way, shape, or form. Not even maybe here in this spot from the Montreal Alouettes. I'm not even going to talk about Kavis Reed again. I've done it so many times. He's a complete disgrace, complete disaster. This is a sinking ship here with Montreal. We know what he's done. He's got the GM role. He's got the coach role now. He's got the entire mansion, the Alouette mansion, to himself. And guess what? He's trashing the mansion. He's going to light it on fire pretty soon, and then you'll have to find a new home. Some of these players. That's what Kavis Reed is doing here to the Montreal Alouettes. It's poison. It's no good. Nick Lewis is banged up, and we see how much they've missed him the last couple of weeks at receiving corps. BJ Cunningham's played at less than 100%. There's no depth at receiver whatsoever for this Montreal. Sam Giguère now back in the lineup playing receiver. That guy hasn't been an impact CFL receiver in years. Sam Giguère. Now all of a sudden he's got to try to pick up the slack for whatever stiff quarterback they put in there. Durant's completely tanked. Drew Willie, who the hell cares who's starting? Durant or Drew Willie? Nobody can play right now. I don't know what more I can tell you. Nobody of these 2 guys can play the quarterback spot at any sort of decent situation right now. To hell with Edmonton losing for me last week. I'm going to go right back to them here. This has to be it for Edmonton. You can't tell me that if Edmonton doesn't bring their A game, that they're better talent, better division, better coaching, way better. Like Jason Moss versus Kavis Reed, that is an absolute utter mismatch from a coaching perspective and an adjustments perspective. No, like that's putting Bill Belichick in there against the Charlie Weiss or something like that, in the NFL. That kind of coaching mismatch. Let's put Bill Belichick in there against Ron Turner, the old college football coach that got fired from Florida International. Wiped the floor with him, basically, from a coaching standpoint. That could happen here. Jason Moss over Kavis Reed. Edmonton will be favored. I like the Montreal power rating is plummeting. Calgary was a 17-point home favorite against Montreal last week, and it didn't even matter. Calgary still crushed the number and absolutely destroyed the Montreal Alouettes last week. I know there's going to be no bargain likely to back Edmonton. They're going to continue to devalue and decrease the power rating at an alarming rate for this free-falling Montreal team. And I know it's not much better on the Edmonton side right now. Their free fall's pretty big too, but they're playing tougher competition. They've at least got a quarterback. They've had a ton of injuries to deal with all season long. At least they've had some, not excuses, but at least a reason or two why they've struggled and why they've lost a bunch of games in a row, this Edmonton team. I can't say that for Montreal. I mean, Montreal, their excuses, they just suck. They're just no good. And they have a dope running the entire organization right now from the GM and coaching perspective. That is why Montreal is losing games. 6 losses in a row for Edmonton. I know it's bad. They've only covered one number, 1-5 against the spread during that time. I don't care what the number is here. I mean, look at this Montreal team. The last 5 games, 32-4, 41-18, 29-11. 33-19, 59-11 against Calgary last week. Their slimmest margin of defeat, 14 points. I think Edmonton can beat them by 14 or more. Absolutely, I can. I see quit written all over this Montreal Alouettes team. If this is anything less than 10, and I think I've got Edmonton -9 in this game on the road. If it's anything less than 10, I will absolutely lay the points with the Eskimos. Absolutely. Won't even hesitate to do that. Andrew, what do you think about this Thanksgiving matchup? Are the Alouettes going to get carved up like a Thanksgiving turkey one more time?
Yeah, like you said, someone's going to be thankful for a win on that day because none of these teams have been really winning at all. You know what? I'll save from ripping on Montreal as much as you, because you kind of hit it right on the nail. So I'll just say that I think if there's one game, Ian, where Edmonton can really turn their season back around again, this is it. In my opinion, I don't even know if you can really call it a statement game, Ian, because it is still the Montreal Alouettes. But this is really a team that Edmonton has to do something, just prove who they are. It's like, hey, look, Edmonton, you're playing Montreal. This is your time to just dominate someone. Get all your anger out from your past 5 games and do something with it. I think Montreal has been an embarrassment of a football team over the past several weeks. They haven't been able to create any kind of identity and really prove who they were. When Darian Durant started the season with them the first couple weeks, I'm not sure about yourself, but for me, I actually thought they were pretty decent. They were actually a decent defensive team. They were putting points up. And now looking at them, they're playing Edmonton after Edmonton has this terrible losing streak. Do you think I care about that? No way. Just like you said with me, anything between like 13 to 9, I'm all over Edmonton, Ian.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm looking at these numbers. We've got a couple minutes still, so we can extend our discussion about this game a little bit more. I mean, look at these margins in terms of the spread for Montreal. 32-4 is a pick 'em. So what? They lose that game by 28 points ATS. 41-18 to BC as 9-point dog. They lose that game 14 points to the spread. 29-11 as a 1-point favorite against Ottawa. They lose that game 19 points to the spread. 33-19 to Toronto. They lose that game 7.5 points to the spread. 59-11 to Calgary last week, and they lose that game, 31 points to the spread. Like, they're not even coming close to the number, and they're pretty much underdogs, and in a lot of cases, double-digit underdogs in these games, and they're still getting crushed ATS. That is how bad things have been for this Montreal Alouettes team. So, you know, it's just a question of what are you going to do if you're the odds maker? Can you adjust your power rating downward on Montreal quickly enough to describe how pathetic, how they suck, they blow, how they're just no good right now and they're falling apart? Like, to me, I think you can make a case Edmonton could actually lay close to 2 touchdowns on the road here at this point. Although I don't think it'll come that high. I think, like I say, I've got this as Edmonton -9. I would make anything less than 10 a play, less than 14, maybe a smaller play. Maybe at that point, if it's above 14, I'd get, back off a little bit. But I think anything less than 2 touchdowns with Edmonton is road chalk even for a team that's lost 6 in a row. Look at this Edmonton schedule. Your Winnipeg, Toronto, since they've picked it up, they lost. Calgary, no shame in that. Calgary again. Saskatchewan, when the Riders were playing really good. And Winnipeg, who was a great team. Where's the bad loss for Edmonton? There's none. None whatsoever. The loss to Saskatchewan, they were good at that time. The loss to Toronto was after their recent bye week, and they've been good since then. There's no bad loss to be had for Edmonton. There's a ton of bad losses to be had for Montreal during this time. So, yeah, it's Eskimos or pass for me. I think we're pretty much agreed on that one.
I think it'd be funny to have a little experiment with Montreal the past couple of weeks, Ian, if we would have seen if the other team, the opposing team they're playing, team total has hit in the past couple of weeks. Because looking at these scores that Calgary last week and 2 weeks ago Toronto put up, I'm pretty sure in the past 3 weeks, the team total of the opposing team that played against the Alouettes has hit on the over. So it's kind of interesting to look at that. Maybe just not even the offense of what the points that Montreal aren't putting up, but the points that they are allowing is pretty troublesome as well, Ian.
Yeah, Edmonton team total over, I think, is definitely worth a look. That's a great point. I will look to that for sure because I think Edmonton gets on track. And when you're starting to quit on your coach, your teammates, and your season, what's the first thing to go? What's the first area of the team that the effort and the intensity and the performance level wanes? It's the defense. You just don't try that hard on that side of the ball. And we're seeing that with Montreal. It's an effort thing. It's completely fallen apart on that side of the ball the last few weeks. Yeah, Edmonton and Edmonton team total over, I think absolutely something you want may want to look at on Monday. All right. Again, no lines, so we're going to give you 3-down breakdown best bets on Twitter at Bobano for me, at McInnes_picks for Andrew. Later in the week, try to keep going with that. I know he cashed with Toronto, which was his. I cashed with Saskatchewan, Ottawa under. See if we can get another best bet winner for both of us this week. That's going to wrap up the show. We got the right side of campus with Jeff and Donnie coming up next here on SBR. Until next week, for Andrew McInnes, I'm Ian Cameron. And don't forget, we'll be back Thursday talking NHL. But for CFL, we'll be back next Tuesday. Enjoy Week 16 action, everybody, and good luck this week.